and Ms. Shomi Bhattacharya, student of MBA first year, are privileged to conduct the session. I hereby take the opportunity to invite on the stage Pro Vice Chancellor Academics and Dean School of Business and Economics, Professor Dr. Naveen Das, to deliver the welcome address. So please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you, my dear students, faculty colleagues, and most importantly, guest of honor, Professor Abdul Salem of all the way from Morocco. And we had a fantastic late morning discussion with him. And he has brilliant ideas to engage with the students. So I'm not anyway going to disclose what he's going to talk about. And Mr. John Hector from Batspa University. We are really delighted to have you with us today. This, to my mind, is a very, very academic kind of a program where we are going to discuss more of domain, more of things which are happening in the world of business, in the world of commerce, in the world of industry, which are relevant to us. We are going to perhaps also do a little bit of crystal ball gazing and see what's happening around the world with such people and dignitaries on stage today who are going to share the experiences with you. I'm sure we are also going to be enlightened with what's going on in the rest of the world. I was telling him, our chief guest today, and obviously now to all of you, many of you are, or rather most of you are in your early 20s, if not even younger. About 20 years ago, almost to the date, 20 years ago, we in India embarked on a path of liberalization, globalization, and privatization. And in the morning, those of you, I know very few of you were there, about 30 of you were there in the morning session, just to give you a glance or a glimpse of what we discussed in the morning, in the inaugural session. Along with the two dignitaries whom we are going to listen to today, after the inaugural part, along with them, two more dignitaries who have come again from outside India. They shared very briefly with us as to what's their vision of innovation in higher education. There were also other addresses from our own people. Things like the pace of innovation thanks to the pandemic. They say that adversity is the mother of invention. And adversity like the pandemic, the global pandemic that happened, and all of us are still, many of us are reeling through that even now. Many of us have lost family, friends, known acquaintances, etc. So we are still reeling with that under the pandemic. But the adversity actually gave rise to innovations in a number of fields, including education. To give you a very mundane example, I think none of us, we believed that in our career, we would teach students not face-to-face, but online. And the very word on is positive, off is negative, and see the mindset today. You say face-to-face as offline, which is a negative connotation, as if online has now become positive. People across the world were earlier also available to us, but I think the online platform ensured that they came to your classroom right there, wherever you were at your homes. The classroom was the platform. Much of the learnings happened online. Earlier also things happened, but not in this space. So innovation in higher education, I think, has been happening for the last 20 years. But today, when we look back, the pace has enhanced a lot because of the pandemic. There are other global issues or global reasons why innovation is the only way for higher education to survive, at least in the format that you and I are aware of. People are now talking about complete online universities, digital universities. People are talking about complete digital certification. They were there earlier also, but this was not the discourse. The discourse has changed in the last 2 to 3 years. To give such directions, to make us aware of such directions which are happening in the whole world, and many other things like metaverse. I'm sure many of you must have heard about metaverse, particularly the PG students, I hope, must have done some courses on metaverse on your own. Just for the dignitaries here, we have actually opened up the online learning platforms to our students. We have subscribed to LinkedIn Learning, and many of our students are going through those programs, LinkedIn Learning courses. I urge that after today's session or after today's program, more and more of you would get attracted to the online platform. There is nothing wrong with the online platform, as long as you are very clear about what you want to learn and what you want to take away as value from what you learn. Earlier also, as I again repeat, these were all there. But perhaps we ourselves were not very convinced about the power of the online connected world. Today we are convinced, and we hope that this connectedness is going to remain, and this connectedness is going to usher in a world which is much more equitable, much more equal, and much more good and valued than what we are seeing today. With these words of a connected world, it's my real pleasure to once again welcome the two professors, Professor Abdul Salem and Mr. John Hector from two universities, world-class universities, to this program, and my other colleagues who are today here in this venue for this program, and also a hearty welcome to all the students who, in spite of a hot day outside, is sitting. I know some parts of the room has not been cooled properly. We will take care of that very soon, and that's why they are all crowded near the front of the room, but that's not a big deal, no problem. As long as you listen to these deliberations and take value out of them, I think the job is done. So without much ado, I hand it over back again to ma'am, and once again, a warm welcome to this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. As always, it has a great pleasure to listen from you. So, sir, I would request you to please bear with us on stage for the formal felicitation of our honored guest.
Well, we take this as an opportunity to express our immense happiness and gratitude to our guests of honor. I request Professor Dr. Prithvis Bose, Head of Management Department, to kindly welcome Professor Dr. Badr Abdul Salem, Muhammad, 5th University, Morocco. Requesting the students to welcome with a loud applause Thank you, Professor Bose. I now request, sir, please. I now request Professor Naveen Das and Professor Prithvis Bose to kindly felicitate Dr. Badr. The clapping should be very, very loud. We are having very energetic young students. Please be seated.
Now I would request our Dr. Rajneesh Clare, sir, to please kindly welcome Mr. John Hector of Bath Spa University, England. On the dais, please. I would also request Professor Das and Dr. Claire to felicitate Mr. Hector.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clare. Yeah, in fact, yeah, that would be great. Dr. Clare and Dr. Bose, if you can please come up on the stage. I thank Ms. Simran Sinha and Ruby Sharkar. They are students of MBA first year. They have assisted us in the felicitation. Thank you. So you can take your seats. I now invite Professor Dr. Abdul Salem to the podium to deliver his talk on the theme, Innovation in Business Education. Dr. Badr is a Fulbright scholar, an international policy development expert, and professor at Muhammad V University in Rabat, Morocco. After completing his PhD, Dr. Badr completed a Carnegie postdoctoral fellowship at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in 2014. He has been visiting postdoctoral fellow at United Nations University of Barcelona.
You don't have to read everything, but thank you.
Sir, the students would love to listen to
I'll
it.
tell them.
Okay, sir, sure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Sir, over
Thank
to
you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for this nice presentation. Once again, thank you to Adamas University, and also thank you, Professor Naveen Das, for this nice presentation and this very warm welcome and organization. I would like also to welcome all the students and thank them for sticking with us together. Despite a very long day and a very hot day, I wonder, and I hope that you've already at least had your lunch. And I know this is a very difficult time to stick focused after you have lunch. Usually it's a time where people go have a nap, right? So, and then they ask me and they put me here to just put you in sleep. So we have two options now. It's either I'm gonna read what I had prepared to put you in a very nice sleep, which I can do, of course, or have a very interactive session with you. So which one do you like? Option one or option two? Option two. Okay, great. You make my life easier now. So I need two people with like two mics, one on this side and another person on that side, if it's possible, please. Yeah, because I'll be interacting with the audience, and I think they might need a microphone.
Can we have two hand mics, please?
Yes. Oh, that would be also nice for me. The slides, that's there, okay. Is it like this? Can I just put it like this? Like this is fine? Because it's too small. Ah, okay, there you go. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Hello? Hello? I'm not sure. Yes, that's good. Hello. Perfect. So do we have the mics? All right, because we need them at some point. All right. So right now, Professor Naveen Das just mentioned an idea about innovation. Can you hear me? It's not annoying, right? Because I feel annoyed with my voice. So Professor Naveen Das just said right now, without innovation, education cannot continue. And I would say that without education, we may not have innovation as well. So they go both ways. They feed to each other. We need innovation, of course, and thank goodness we have education, because thanks to education, we can innovate. And that also made me think of one very important idea that I keep hearing all the time, is that digitalization is going very fast, and if education does not catch up with it, then I don't know what's going to happen to education. But like, whenever I hear this kind of ideas, I wonder, do these people who are saying such narrative understand that this kind of digitalization is happening thanks to education? So education is never going to be under threat. On the contrary, digitalization is happening thanks to education and institutions who are educating and building those capacities, who, after they graduate or they finish their education, they move to the market sector, and then they innovate with other agencies. They could be research centers or R&D institute in general. So that this just I want to clarify on this idea that, like, yeah, education needs to catch up with the fast trend of ICT and artificial intelligence. Those things, they are the product of education. They didn't come up from another world, you know? Now, that being said, inventing the future is one way of realizing that kind of innovation we are talking about. And in order to get there, I'll be just asking you questions. I'm not going to here to lecture you, okay? I had just a few questions, and through the interaction, we might figure out a way to invent this future. So, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. This is a very famous phrase we use in foresight studies. Studies about the future, forecasting the future, and predicting the future. And this is a famous theorist who said that, like, the best way to forecast the future is to invent it. Before I unpack this idea and explain to you what it means, we need to think, why do we actually need to be concerned about the future at first place? Why shouldn't I just focus on the present and maybe make the best out of the present and make the present a best moment to live? Financially, emotionally, socially, economically, politically. Why do we need to be concerned about the future? Does anyone have an answer? I'm sure you all do have an answer, but let's take one or two takers. Go ahead, please, sir. Yes?
Hello. Thank you, sir. And in my opinion, sir, working in the present...
Can you tell us which department?
I am a student of BBA Honors,
All right.
SOBE.
Okay.
And my name is Harmeet Singh. So in my opinion, actually working in the present is actually building a foundation for the future.
Yes.
People work in the present so they have a nice future.
Exactly.
And actually inventing a good future, as you say, or inventing future doesn't seem very a legitimate phrase. Because you cannot invent that is, ahead of time. We can only hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Very nice. Yeah, this is a typical kind of approach to the future of a layman, okay? But I think we are here a group of bunch of people who are beyond just a layman. You're educated folks, right? So I think you have to have at least one step ahead of what normal people think. So can anyone give us a different approach or take to this idea of why do we need to be concerned? Your colleague just mentioned something very important. Yeah, we want to ensure or make sure that the future is going to be a better space, a better place to be. But does that mean that that better place should be at the expense of the present? Does that mean that we should leave the present miserably at the expense of having a better future which we may not even have, which we may not even live to have? Does that mean that? While thinking about this, does anyone have another answer, a different answer to why should we be concerned about the future? There's no right or wrong here, it's just like opinions.
Yeah, thank you, sir,
Yes.
for giving me the opportunity to speak. Well, we are human beings, we are evolutionary clear creatures, and for 5 billion years of experience, we are here right now. And we have to grow for the future because there is globalization and there's global warming on the other side. And if we are not concerned about future right now, then we have to face some real difficulties in the next 50 years. And that's my answer.
Thank you very much. What was your name, please?
Well, myself, Shudripta Bhattacharya. I'm from BSc Economics, second year.
Thank you very much. Exactly. If you don't think about the future and invent it, you will have to deal with it. It's going to be imposed on you because you didn't choose it, so you'll have to deal with it. And I think that's also one of the reasons why we need to be concerned about the future. Now, here's another question. So how do you feel when you learn new skills or you acquire new knowledge as a human being? How do you feel? Like, let's say you learned how to ride a bike, or you learned how to fish, or you learned how to shoot. You learned a new set of vocabulary. How do you feel? Huh? You feel great, exactly. What else? How do you feel? Mike, please.
Sir, first time it became very difficult to try a new thing. So when we start practicing for this particular time for 21 days, it became our experience. So it is feel like first time it become very difficult initial phase. So after practicing for 21 days, so it will become our habit.
Okay, become happy, but it's process. It's not like automatic you feel happy, right?
Yes, sir. It is.
All right, yes. Another person, another idea? Another taker? Yes, please, let's hear from the ladies. I just hear the boys speaking here.
So, hello, I'm Shupriya from MBA first year.
Mhm.
How do you feel when you learn new skill knowledge, excited and plus nervous?
Can you say that again? You said two things.
Excited and second is nervous.
Excited and nervous.
Yes.
Okay, I can understand excited part. Why nervous?
Like because it is a new skill or knowledge. If someone who don't know about it, that time they feel nervous that what will be.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Another person?
Thank you.
No one else? Okay. Yeah.
Sir, when we learn a new skill, we feel very settled in, because actually we know we did something that will help us in the future, and we feel more secure about our present. And
Great.
that really satisfies us.
What was your name again?
Sir, Dhruvo Sarkar,
Very
MBA
nice.
first year.
Thank you very much. This is great, because what you just said, I'm going to come back to it in one of the slides. Now, we learn new skills. Yes, we feel curious, intrigued, proud, relieved, more secured, surprised. Your friend just said more secured, and I would add here like nervous, as your friend said. Now, here's another one. How do you plan your trip to a conference organized in a foreign country? Like you're going to another country. How do you plan for that trip? Maybe here we should listen from, or like hear from the professors, because these are the ones who plan for this kind of trips, right? Yeah, any taker, don't be shy. Look at the students are more bold than you, huh? Yeah, microphone, please. No, I can't.
Yeah, now I can hear you. So we actually, earlier I used to look through the agent, but now I book by myself. So that it's safe now and cheaper
Why?
as well.
Why is that? What made you change here?
Because I find that more cheaper price, cheaper tickets.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, it is. Any other answer? But here, I would like you to give me more details. Like, what are the things that you do when you're planning that? Let's take some of the audience here, please. You, for example, what did you do? How did you plan this trip to come all the way to India? Do we have a microphone? I'll get you one. Thank you.
very good question.
Give me like small details, please.
Small details.
Everything.
I don't think you want to know all the details, to be honest. But I think, to be honest, it was incredibly stressful because the visa process was very difficult.
Visa process.
The visa process, and I won't bore you with it, but I actually didn't think I was going to make it, but luckily I did. But I don't know, planning, clothes, food, jobs, doctors, leaving my house in good order, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John. Yes, exactly. That's what I was looking for. See, planning a trip to a conference, you have to look at travel documents, passport, visa. Now we have to have the vaccine, PCR test, things that they just added this year. How to get there, ground transportation, the taxi, the distance from the airport to the hotel. Like, will the hotel check you in if you arrive early in the morning? Will you find the person who is supposed to pick you up from the airport? How are you going to communicate with him if you don't have an international? All of these things you think about. Some of them you plan before you leave your house. Some of them you have people like these nice people here who like plan them for you and then arrange them for you. All right? Now, what conclusion can we draw from between question number 1 that I just asked you, which is I forgot the question number 1. What was it about? Yes. And then this question, like, what the second question, which is this one, like, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening here. How do you plan your trip? Yes. So, what conclusion can we draw between question number 1 and question number 2? These are conclusions. So, like some kind of design thinking and critical thinking skills here need to be put, talking to the students here. Yes, please. Thank you for saving us. Yes. Here's a microphone.
So your first question was that how do you feel when you learn a new skill?
Yes.
And the second question is that what do you do when you go to a travel?
How do you plan for your trip?
Okay, so there are n number of things that is there in when you are planning for a trip. As you said, booking for visa, RT-PCR certificates, and hell lot of things. So this is also a new skill to be learned for traveling. But then there is an innovation. Somebody else came, made an app like Make My Trip, and made it all easier for a customer to do all this kind of stuff so that they can have a conference like you in this country with ease. That is what I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You thought like it's also valid. Yes, please, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes?
So my answer would be the basic human desire, like exploration, knowing the unknown. When you learn a new skill, it makes you excited about exploring something that you haven't explored before.
Okay.
When you are traveling to a new country, you might be looking for visas and passports and crime rate of the particular city or anything else, but deep in your heart, you want to explore new things. That is the basic human desire.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's a great idea, actually. Does anyone have anything else to add to this? Okay. All right. So let's look at the first example here. A layman that I was talking about like 10 minutes ago. So question number 1, some of you said like when you learn more, you feel more secured because you learned something new, right? That's what some people said here. So, and then question number 2, you do all this planning because you want to be prepared. There are like less uncertainties, less unpredictabilities throughout that trip. So that's why you plan basically. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to know like the distance between the hotel and the airport, how many hours you would need for the checkout and all these things. So basically, we go through those processes because we want, like as your friend put it, although in different way, like it's like human instinct. Like we need to feel good in different ways. In the first situation, we need to feel secured. And then the other situation, we feel we also want to have that self-pride or like self-esteem. When we learn something new, we feel secure because like we have fed an aspect in our personality. Okay, but these are the attitude of a layman, of a normal person, again. But here, we are like one step, or at least that's how we should think about ourselves. You know, as a student of today, future leaders of tomorrow, we have to think like one step beyond just layman, normal people. You are educated people who represent the future and lead the future. So you should be different from other people. So, therefore, learning new things should not make you feel comfortable. It should make you feel so uncomfortable, so insecure. Because the more you learn, the more you realize how ignorant you are. And you only discover your ignorance by discovering new things. Because look, if right now you tell me, if I ask you, what is the population of Kolkata? How many people live in Kolkata? And then you tell me X number. This is something I've never known before. But then at the moment I know it, then I say, oh my God, if I just learned the number, the X number of the Kolkata population, how much I still don't know about this population. So each time I would learn something, that new thing should usher me to the ignorance I still have within me. And discovering that ignorance should be enough a motivator to keep me going, looking for new things, inventing. Of course, as a human being, you are not supposed to invent a machine or like but like it's a process. Like it's a self-discovery. And you need it as an individual, you need it as a student, because that's how you might contribute to inventing new things when you are provided the facilities and the logistics and the mindset of the people who will be working on inventing whatever you're trying to invent. So this is very important. The first thing is that we need to change our mindset about our learning. Like the way we learn, and the purpose of learning is not to make us feel secured or happy about ourselves, but to make us more curious, more insecure, because the more we learn that we don't know much about what exists out there. And then the other thing is, question number 2, yeah, we prepare for the trip in order to have less uncertainties and predictabilities. But like someone who is like beyond just being just a layman, he should be so much prepared in order to have less clashes, less problems, and more resilience with dealing with uncertainties. Because I think as individuals, as students, and as leaders of the 21st century, I think our resilience, our strength relies not on whether we have less unpredictabilities. No. We should have more skills to deal with more unpredictabilities and uncertainties. And I think that is the role that higher education institute and curricula and programs and professors need to do with their students, is to train them to deal with more uncertainties, not to reduce the uncertainties. Because whether you like it or not, and no matter how much uncertainties you're trying to reduce, you can always have another pandemic, something that you don't plan for. But you could have the skills to deal with it. And I think that's another thing we can walk our way toward inventing that future. So inventing the future is not necessarily like drawing a future and say, okay, I'm going to go to it, which is one of the way, by the way, to walk toward the future. But the way I'm talking about is just like to have enough skills and preparedness to deal with any kind of future that might face you, because that's also the mindset of foresight or strategic foresight experts or like people who work in this area of research. Now, in order to be prepared or to develop that kind of preparedness, we have also to be aware of the present. And that's why we need to navigate the present, to understand how is the present. And you know, the present from perspective of higher education policy development in general, is looked at from two different perspectives. There is the business perspective, and then there is the policy perspective. So we have the Oxford Business School developed this concept like of a tuna, you know, and that's how they look at the present. They say the present is turbulent, unpredictably uncertain, and novel and ambiguous. And that's the way they train leaders or future leaders or students or researchers to deal and see the future. The future is not something, the present. And then we have the military, like that's a concept that was developed in the 90s, and then they developed the concept of VUCA. And they say that the present is volatile, uncertain, compatible, what is that? Complex, yes, I'm sorry. Complex and ambiguous. By the way, complex is totally different from complicated. Complex is organically intertwined, and we need to learn how to navigate that complexity. But complication is what we add to it through our lack of competences or like lack of knowledge or lack of resources. And then we make the presence more complicated. But complex, it's a natural state of being of the present time. Now, as experts, as students, as researchers, we need to develop that tendency of looking at the present as such. Because only by looking at the present as such, we are more uncomfortable. And the more uncomfortable we are, the more prone to find solutions, innovate solutions, or like find new concepts to whatever we are trying to deal with. And this is just the idea that I just said, is that like we need to change our way of looking at the present in order to be more willing to invent this future that we don't even know. Of course, we are not inventing the future by saying, in 5 years from now, I'm going to be working in this position or having a car or buying this house. That is forecasting. This is not inventing, okay? Inventing in foresight is that you are imagining maybe 5 or 6 or 7 versions of the future. And you're not walking your way toward any one of those futures. But what you're doing, you're just preparing the tools that you might need in case you face one of those futures that you imagined. Okay, you say, for example, in 5 years from now, maybe I will still don't have a job. So what would I do in 5 years from now if I still don't have a job? Then you develop the tools that you might need to deal with that kind of situation. Resilience, you can develop different kind of skills that you may not even need to work or to use for a professional position at the present moment, but you might need them in 5 years from now when you may not have a job. Because again, education, as it is, need to be dynamic in the sense that it needs to feed us skills that are on the move, because the demands are on the move. The skills we are learning today, they are maybe feasible for another 5 or 4 years, but then maybe in 15 years you might need other skills. And I think Vice Chancellor today, Professor Kumar, talked about lifelong learning. And that's where lifelong learning comes into place, because the skills that you have today, maybe they are valid for a certain kind of period, for a certain kind of field. But then later on, maybe in 10 years from now, we'll have like new kind of market demand, and then that market demand need like different kind of skills. And this is something also we discussed today with Professor Naveen Das, in the sense that like, yeah, universities now are basically providing for the needs that the market is requesting for, okay? Universities, that's what they mostly are doing. But like, I think the role of the university should go beyond that and creating the need, not only answering the need, in the sense that like there is a new company, it could be an IT company, and they come and they tell you, could you train X number for us, who are X number of human capital of students who are experts in digital marketing, for example. And then the university opens this program and then trains the students. But like, we can go one step further and then create the need. No, we don't need to wait for companies to come and tell us we need this this kind of human capital, but we could create and develop a new kind of human capital that even companies themselves, they still don't need at the present time. But maybe in 5 or 10 years, when they will need them, they will already find them. Why? Because the university was bold enough to take a step further and not only answer the need, but create the need for the markets. This was supposed to be, but I thought it's going to be like in a very, very short, small room, but it's a big room. I don't think we can have like a breakout session here. But like my next idea, after imagine that this is another thing you have to imagine. When you're imagining the future, also imagine you had this breakout session with me. But the breakout session was basically this. Like together, we will think about how do you imagine, for example, in 5 years from now, how do you imagine the demand for the field with, I believe that most of you are in business studies, right? Business administration. In 5 years from now, what kind of demand will be on the business administration field? Now, I know that there is like finance, marketing, communication, public relations. In 5 years from now, what kind of courses do you think might be needed that you still don't study at this time? Or maybe that you still don't teach at this time? So let's take any volunteers here. Let's see how wild your imagination is. Yes, please, sir.
So I think if I'm talking about MBA finance or any finance education, there is a movement that is going on in decentralized finance, or called DeFi.
Digitalized, you said?
I said.
You said digitalized, right?
Decentralized finance. Blockchain.
Decentralized. Okay, I'm sorry, yes.
Decentralized finance. So there is a conflict that is going on between centralized finance and central banks and governments and decentralized finance.
So it exists already, right?
Sorry?
It exists.
It does exist.
Well, I'm asking about something that does not exist.
It does not exist.
Yes.
No, the education doesn't exist as of now, but the movements have already started.
Can you say that again? Are you trying to trick me now?
No, I'm saying our educations are not geared up to blockchain or decentralized finance as of now.
I see what you mean.
But the change has already started in the
all right,
the posh areas like the Silicon Valley and the other stuff. So I think next 5 years, blockchain itself, the technology itself will be very big. And we think we need to move towards that.
All right. Yes, thank you. I see someone else here. Yes, someone here.
Sir, in my opinion, there should be a dedicated education plan for financial scams, especially in India, I guess. There is no dedicated education program right now in any university here. And there should be some kind of this so that a group of students may be trained on auditing and different aspects of financial statements they can read and interpret in different angles and perspectives.
All right, so I understand what is scam, right? And I understand what is financial, but what do you mean by financial scam?
It is something kind of a sabotage, a financial or economical sabotage, as has been done in this country in last decades, we have seen. So this is what I think, that there should be a mechanism or a certain kind of a machinery put together in force so that there should be a continuous auditing being taught to students regarding different financial institutions so that whole thing can be, decreased to a certain level.
I see. All right, thank you. Any other suggestions to how the future looks like? Yes, please.
There is a huge change.
Excuse me.
Yes, myself, Dr. C.K. Das. I expect there should be a huge change in the distribution system, that is logistic and supply chain. Even the bank branches, we are finding so many places, the nationalized banks in India, their services will be different. The services they are providing now, I hope the consumer can do it online. And the number of branches and number of staffs in the branch will be more. Likewise, Even your FMCG products, the distribution system will go for a huge change or sea changes. That's in across sectors, across services. There will be huge differences of supplying their product and services to the consumer.
Let's see. And like what would trigger this? Could you tell us what would trigger this kind of change? What would cause this change?
Yes, if I say 20 years back, if we're talking about online, there are two things we used to book online. One is sometimes it is air ticket or purchasing a books. But today, what not? Likewise, whatever, suppose if I talk about banking system, you say consumer need not to go to a branch. I hope one head office can manage the banking system. That I presume after 20 years or you say or 10, 15 years, I need not to go to drop my check to a branch. There will be a provision I can scan. I hope in India this provision is not there still. You see, that kind of services will be available.
Right. Thank you. Other imagined way of looking at the program in 5 years from now? Yes, so I'll take one last taker.
Hello. So to address his query, I think he is addressing around Ponzi schemes or the Bernie Madoff scheme, the scams that have happened. So that can be tracked, that can be traced by blockchain itself. So I think blockchain would be the next big thing in the next coming 10 years. And after that, I believe automation, IoT, and robotics will take that spot.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, except from one or two ideas, I still don't see like the question. Maybe it's because of time constraint also. Maybe you need time to digest the question itself. But like the question is not being addressed. I'm asking here just like in 5 years from now, the program you are taking, and I give you a concrete example. I didn't want to talk about certain kind of technologies or certain kind of theories. I'm talking about something you are familiar with, which is like your BA program. How is it going to be changed totally in 5 years from now, and why? But like I get like some ideas, but not exactly what I'm looking for, or like the direction I would like you to look at. Maybe it's also my mistake. I couldn't manage to take you to that direction. Now, again, coming back to the present, because you can only imagine like possibly that future if you look at the present again and scan the present. The present as such, and when I talk about the present, not only in India, but like globally speaking, because as some of you just mentioned, we're living in a global era. And the present as we live it is the world is under the threat of global pandemics, and healthcare system is stressed. It's under so much pressure. The economic system are fragile, and political and financial turmoil are even stronger than before, and sufficient to look at some of the regions in the world and see what's happening politically and also economically speaking. The labor market is transforming at faster and unsteady fashion due to the pandemic, and also currently we have the war on Ukraine. And then we have artificial intelligence, information technologies, Internet of Things, and the metaverses, as you mentioned, Professor, are transforming not only the world as we live it, but also our cultural values are being transformed. Climate change is fluctuating between the youth aspirations, which are like really very high, and then the slow motion of policy development and decision makers and takers as well. Migration trends are not only impacting the socioeconomic and political factors, but also environmental stress on global warming, water scarcity, natural disaster, droughts, water justice, and so many other aspects related to environment. And then we have lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is no more just a luxury, but it's a must. I was talking to a colleague 2 days ago, and he said, like, a good idea. He said, an education, or like the demand of education nowadays is not just to help you find the first job, but to help you maintain the ability to find a third and fourth and fifth job. Because the first job is going to come to you Once you graduate, you apply for maybe 1 month or 6 months, depending on how lucky you are, and then you will get a job eventually, because you are a young person, because people still want to make use of your energy, blah, blah, blah. But then at some point in time, you will want to to change your social, economic, and financial status, and you might want to change job. But will your skills enable you to change a job and still find it after spending 10 or 15 or 8 years at your first job? If the education you have enables you to find a second job and a third job, then we are talking here about an education which is enabling and maintaining your evolution across time. And those who don't have these kind of skills, these are the ones who need to indulge in lifelong learning, capacity building, training, and then switching skills and navigating through different skills. Sometimes you have certain kind of skills, but you need to marry it to a new kind of skill in order to blend with the intent to infiltrate to a new kind of job market. Now, there is an escalated tension in how democracies are facing the future, other regions of the world also. International security is threatened not only by traditional weapons, but also cyber crimes. We just talked about scams, right? And then life and living are shaped more by digitalization than the real world. So these are some of the mega trends that characterize our present. Now, if we want to imagine and invent a future, we have to put those things into perspective. We have to understand how those trends are shaping the future. Because only when these trends I'm talking about, they are happening in the present, but of course, they will have an impact in the near future. Maybe, let's say 5 years from now, some of these trends will continue. Maybe they will change geographies, but they will still continue. Now, we have to put them into perspective in order to be able to describe and imagine that invented future. Of course, you are not going to be alone inventing the future, because a future invention requires synergies with different kind of stakeholders. What does that mean? If you are, I don't know, a corporate businessman, you might need the bank, you might need the policymakers, you might need the laborers, you might need the university, you might need NGOs, you might need different people who would help you, like put together that future that you are aiming for. And the only way to convince these people to engage with you in the invention of this future is to convince them that this is also the kind of future that would serve their purpose and their need. So how would you do that then? How would you leverage your needs and expectation to other stakeholders that you need to be in a ship with you to invent that kind of future? How would you convince potential stakeholders? And this is a question to you. Again, there is no wrong or right question. These are just opinions. It could be valid or invalid. So any taker? Or did I already put you in sleep? Huh? You're still awake, right? All right. So shall I repeat my question? Yeah. All right. So I was talking about like inventing the future requires not only you. It needs you, but with you, you need also to bring with you other stakeholders, other people, organizations, institutions who will be necessary for you to invent and realize that future. Depending on who you are and where you are, that position where you are will define the kind of people or organization that you will need to bring with you. And we call them stakeholders, right? It could be the bank, an NGO, an association, a businessman, an enterprise, but a set of them, a consultant, a policy developer, a politician, political party, different kind of people that need to engage with you in order to invent that future that you want to have. Now, in order to leverage, in order to convince these people to engage with you in the creation of this future you want or the creation of the future scenario you want to create, you have to convince these people by showing them that the future you're trying to invent is useful for them as well, right? Otherwise, why would they invest their time or energy or resources to engage with you? Now, my question is, how are you going to convince them to engage with you in this future invention? Yes, go ahead.
So if we talk about normal individuals or organizations, an individual is a part of a society. A society is not a part of an individual. So whatever is good for the society will be good for the organizations as well as everyone living in it. So that is the first point. And the second point is that this pandemic only showed us that if we don't work together, if we don't collaborate, if we don't share data, we're not going to survive. So these are two eminent examples that I can show, or I can actually spread awareness about, so that all the stakeholders, the politicians, the bankers, everybody can come together in creating a better tomorrow.
Okay. Well, it's a good try, but still it's not convincing. You haven't even convinced me. Will you convince a bank to give you a loan of $100,000 by just telling them these two sentences?
No, my answer was actually based on philosophy. And as you said about convincing a bank for 1,000 crore loan, so that depends on the particular business idea or the innovation that I will pitch to them.
Okay, all right. I just want you to be aware. Yes, please, Professor. Just aware that yeah, it's very nice to have those romantic ideas, but we live in a real world, you know. You cannot just say society is good for everyone and then people will be convinced and say, okay, let's engage with you. Doesn't happen that way in the real world, huh? Yes, please.
Just two things. First, we need to demonstrate that we analyze, we understand the present better,
5 minutes?
or at least we understand the present equally as our other stakeholders would analyze and understand the present. That's point number one.
Can you repeat it, because I didn't hear it, sorry.
Okay, 2 points. Point number one, that I need to demonstrate to my other stakeholders that I understand the present better than others.
How would you do that? How would you show them that you understand better than others?
That's point number two.
Okay.
And as you are reminding what others said in the morning, so I'm also reminding the audience, Paul Richardson this morning, he said also very good thing, that innovation without social justice. So another thing is, I need to also demonstrate the plurality in our thought, that all the invention or innovations which I'm going to be part of is not despite the value systems which comes with plurality.
I see. Can you say that again in different words? In English, I mean, so that everyone understand?
I said the two things. One,
just the second one. Point number two.
Okay, there cannot be the sustained social innovation or sustained technical innovation is not possible without plurality and social justice.
All right, thank you. Yes, that's very clear. Thank you, Professor. Is there any other suggestion? Yes, please, Professor.
In connection with each stakeholder, should have win-win situation. It may be
depending. Yes.
Yes. In that win-win situation, I mean, what are values to the stakeholders and what are costs? Yes. If we define these are the values and these are the costs, and if we go for equilibrium, I hope we can have a good innovation.
That's exactly the business mindset. You know, you have to see the costs and then the values and then the benefits, right? Exactly. So first of all, I think just to say whatever Professor just said, like in different ways, before you engage with stakeholders, you have to understand what are their objectives, why are they existent? Because every stakeholder exists because of an objective, a goal. And before you approach them, you need to know what are their goals. Because when you go and talk to them, you are going to go and convince them that the future you are trying to invent is going to meet their goals and objectives and vision as a business. So that's the first thing. You really need to understand who is the stakeholder and what are their goals. And then when you go there, you're also going there showing them, or like at least having in mind, what is the cost of the thing you want them to do for you. This is an abstract thing, you know. But like in real life, that comes down to whatever you're trying that stakeholder to do for you. Let's say I'm organizing this conference, right? And I want these rags. And I cannot afford them, right? But I know the people who sell those rags. So I'm gonna go and approach them. Okay, would you like certain, like X or Y number of companies to get to know your products and maybe have business with you in the future? And the answer would be obviously, yes, of course I would like to have that. Then you would tell them, well, I'm organizing this event in which I'm inviting 100 companies based in different cities in India, and I would like 20 or like 10 sets of rag to have on the floor. And when I put them there, I'll also put like the brand, blah, blah, blah. It's like a small example like on how you do marketing and also bring partners to contribute to a small event. But you do the same kind of strategy to bring people to contribute to your bigger project for the future. It's the small strategy, small technique, but like with different scopes. How much time? Still, can I still have some time? Or because I didn't even get to start. All right. Well, yeah, I know because I'm exceeding the time because we started very late. I really wanted to drive home the idea that inventing the future is not just sitting home and imagining it. No, it's true. It starts with an idea, of course. It starts with what kind of future you want. But there are a lot of technicalities and mechanisms you have to go through. It's like mathematics. And of course, it's not sure. It's like maybe you might get 70%, maybe you might get 30% of it. And again, if you set a date for it, let's say, for example, this is in 5 years from now, I'm going to reach this kind of future. You may not reach it within 5 years, but you might reach it until the 7th or maybe the 10th year, okay? But at least that kind of preparedness also gave you the kind of resilience to not collapse when that time of reaching that future came, but it was not realized. You are still resilient, and you can still do it or navigate the situations or like the conditions you are in, regardless of whether your expectations are met or not. So inventing that future also entails techniques and methods of collecting data, understanding what's going on. And that starts with scanning the future, and the present, understanding the present, and see what are the trends that are shaping this present. In the academic, or let's say in the business or official context, we have different methods where we collect those data and analyze them. And I'm sure you are familiar with some of the methods like scenario planning and Delphi technique or gaming. There are different techniques where we actually collect data, present data, on the trend of the present, depending on what kind of present we are trying to investigate. It could be the presence of businesses, it could be the presence of higher education, it could be the presence of social movements, for example, and then we invest it, we collect data about it, we analyze it, and then we look at the trend, and then we look at the small signals, and then we can pretend what could happen. But when we pretend what could happen, then we have to bring those stakeholders I was talking about. But not any stakeholders. It's only after you have that yielded data, then the data will inform you what kind of stakeholders need to be engaged with you in order to walk toward that future. And again, it's not about pinning down specific kind of future and say, I'm gonna get there. No, it's about creating different versions, scenarios of the future, and then you are well prepared to get into any of those scenarios with the skills that you have developed for that future. I hope that made anything reasonable to you, and if you have any question, maybe within 2 minutes, I'll be happy to take any questions. Yes, please. And then, sir. Let's start with the students and then professor.
Sir, you laid so much stress on this word innovation. So back from 19th century, from 18th century, when typical manufacturers used to manufacture cars, then came Henry Ford with innovation, and he set up assembly lines for mass production. Again, more innovation is there, and in companies in India, we see in Bajaj that there is automation. People are actually replacing human labor with automatic machines. And thus, they are actually bridging this gap of innovation with technology, but actually creating a gap in employment. You're actually taking out bloodlines or lifelines from local labors by automating things. So how do you bridge this unemployment gap by technology? That is what my question is.
All right, thank you. I'll get back to it.
No, the whole idea is that if you see the real world recently, that our intention or innovations are actually going towards the society or for myself.
The society of?
Or for myself, for my personal interest.
Okay.
That's like profit-making business, okay? That basically you are making business for your profit and for the society.
Yes.
So that's the future's trend is that people are making more profit than the society is gaining from them. So the two examples could be like extreme poverty. That is still there in the world. We are doing lots of things, lots of education, lots of innovation are doing, but still we have this problem of the extreme poverty. And the climate change. We are making so many things. We are talking so many things. We are giving so many prizes. But still, these two things, I think, whatever we do in education or innovation or stakeholders' objective we do, I think the society's part should be into this whole
process.
scenario. Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you mentioned something, and normally we talk a lot about it, is that like, yeah, and it's true. In reality, people like open businesses in order to make profits. I mean, society always comes second. Like you want to serve society, certain community, blah, blah, blah. But first, I want to make profit. I want to improve my life conditions. And then what's come next, that's another gain. But I was talking to Professor earlier in his office, and he mentioned something very important that used to exist in the traditional Indian educational system, in which a person goes through different stages, right? And then at some point in his or her life, he reaches a stage where he just give up everything. And that person dissociates himself with every object in life, and then just like get back into his soul and then live in solitude and, you know. This is a very symbolic thing that also happens nowadays in business. It's true. Business owners at the beginning, they are hungry, they're greedy, and they want to make as much money as they want, right? As possible. And at the expense of society, it's true. But at certain points when they get enough of that, and we have many examples, and you know them all, by the way, where they start thinking about corporate social responsibility. And they start investing back because they had so much money. And they are doing it not because now they are thinking of corporate social responsibility. No, because now they think they are about to die in 2 or 3 years. And they are leaving so much money behind, so they want to invest it, to give it back to society or to animal organization or to environment. So it's not always like just that black picture about investors. They want, no, there are other sides to the story. And I think that's the kind of spirit, and I hope that within the Department of Business, you also try to instill this kind of spirit. It's not only about making profits. And profit is not always money. Human relations is also another, like immaterial profits that you can have. And that's also something you should start evaluating students on when you're evaluating them about their business plan. Not only how much money they are making and how much profit and what is the cost of the service. No, it's also about how much value as human beings they are creating. And that's very, very, very important aspect. Now, how do you bridge the gap? There are different ways. Of course, this is the job of the higher education system. The higher education system needs to put into place, and I'm sure Adamas University has that, is that like they put different kind of mechanisms. And I think today I was talking to some of the business students, and I asked them whether they have training and internship. They said, yeah, we do have in S3, semester 3, they have an internship, and then semester 4, I believe, like they have an on-site job or something like. This kind of tools, these are tools that the university puts forward so that you transit smoothly from the classroom into the real world. But beyond that, you should take initiative as students. I mean, while taking classes, you have so many other opportunities to throw yourself to the business world and get some experience. Maybe not, you have different ways to do that. You can volunteer with organizations, you can have part-time jobs, you can work online. There are so many things in which you can acquire professional skills that would bridge the gap between what you're studying and what the job market requires. You have vacations, summer vacations. Like you can also take advantage of them and then use them to acquire some of those skills. So there are different ways to do that, to bridge the gap. But of course, it's not only the responsibility of the student, it's the institution which also needs to put forward like transitory period, transitory curriculum, transitory courses that bridge between what is theoretical and what is professionally needed within the job markets. I hope I have answered the question. I also would like to thank you very much for your attention and engagement and interaction. And it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that was indeed a very highly engaging talk from Dr. Badr. Well, from here we will move to our next guest of honor.
So, well, it is the time that we are going to hear from our next guest, that is Mr. John Hector. So, very briefly, Mr. John Hector has worked for Batspa University as an employability consultant for the past 5 years. He supports students and graduates to gain relevant work experience and graduate level employment. Mr. Hector also supports students to start up in businesses. Prior to joining this organization, he has also worked as a freelancer consultant for 10 years. He has also worked with social enterprises and public sector. So I would like to invite Mr. John Hector to please share a few words with us.
Yes, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. I realize we're out of time and it's very hot, so I'm going to be very brief. First of all, I'd just like to say a couple of things. First of all, I realize we've got second years and finalists in the audience. So first of all, well done for the last 2 years. The pandemic has been fairly brutal, and our students and graduates have found that too. So the world is now opening up with lots of opportunities. So well done for getting through that particularly difficult time. In terms of my role in supporting graduates, no, it's fine, I'll use that one, it's fine. In terms of supporting graduates, probably like you, I know we've got second years here, but in terms of finalists as well, our graduates will be moving into the public sector, into the health service, into SMEs, into business, and a particular feature of our universities, we have very high levels of enterprise, so startup. About 15% of our individuals will start their own freelance businesses. So in terms of innovation, you may want to think about working for yourself, and that's a particularly big area for us. So I think that's all I'm going to say really at the moment. So I think it's well done. Think about enterprise potentially as a possible career route. I'm going to be here for the rest of the afternoon, so I'm more than happy to have a chat with you, talk about Batspa, talk about your plans, talk about what you want to do. So please come and have a chat to me. And just again, a big thank you to Adamas for inviting us here. We've spoken, me and my two colleagues have spoken to lots of you over the last 4 or 5 days, and we're thoroughly impressed with your standard of commitment, your skills, and your endeavors. So I wish you the very best of luck, particularly the finalists moving into industry. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hector, for all the information that you have shared with us. Now, from here, we move on to the next segment, which is perhaps a much awaited segment. Students are waiting for announcement of the prizes of the business event which was held in the first half today. The business idea competition along with poster presentation had been organized today in School of Business and Economics. I request Dr. Badr to kindly hand over the trophy to the runner-up. So, any guesses? Who are the runner-ups? Yes? I'm sure people are wondering. Come on, there should be some noise. Yes? Okay, so let's not keep you all waiting. The runner-up for this event are Ms. Simran Sen and Ms. Ruby Shorkar, Team A. I request both of you to please come up on the stage. They were the Thali girls for today. Sir, आपने Next, to come to the winners, first prize winners, I'm sure here you must be having some idea, yes? Fine. I think you all are too tensed to utter anything. To call out the names, the winners of this event is Team B. Members are Mr. Abdul Rauf Sardar, Mr. Onkar Bhadro, Mr. Harmeet Singh. Please come up on the stage. Where is Harmeet? Come on. Now the hall should resound. Louder, louder.
So do you think you're gonna make the project to start?
Sir, for the photograph. Heartiest congratulations to not only the winners, but also to all the participants, right?
So now the program has come to an end and we have to say goodbye to all. So before that, I would request Professor Udayan Das from Department of Commerce and Economics to deliver the vote of thanks. Please give him a big round of applause. Over to you.
Thank you, Somi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks in this August function. entitled Adamas Global Summit on Innovation in Higher Education Beyond Boundaries, school-specific program organized by School of Business and Economics. We would like to express our deep sense of gratitude to esteemed Professor Badre Abdul Salem, Professor Muhammad, 5th University, Morocco, for his gracious presence and erudite deliberation. It was indeed a memorable experience. Thank you very much, sir. Our heartfelt thanks goes to Mr. John Hector, Bath Spa University, England, for his kind presence and excellent address. It was indeed an excellent one. Thank you very much, sir. We remain always indebted to our esteemed Chancellor, Professor Somit Ray, for his parenting and handholding each one of us. We express our sincerest thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dipendra Kumar Jha, for being a continuous source of inspiration to us. We acknowledge with all humility the direction, support, and advices provided by the SOBE leadership, to start with Professor Dr. Naveen Das, Dean SOBE, Professor Dr. Pritish Bose, HOD Department of Management, and Dr. Rajnish Clare, HOD Department of Economics and Commerce. We also express our sincere thanks to all concerned departments of the university for their tremendous support and participation. Last but not the least, from the bottom of my heart, I thank all my faculty colleagues and students of SOBE who by their tireless efforts have made this program a grand success. This day, this event will definitely glitter in the history of the university. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Professor Das. Now with that, we have come to the end of our session. Thank you all the dignitaries. Thank you, Professor Naveen Das. Thank you, Professor Bose, Dr. Clark. Students, please wait for some time. I request all the faculty members to kindly come up on the stage for a group photograph.